My partner betrayed me after 15 years, then her daughter told me to grow up. We were together for a decade and a half. 15 years. And after everything I gave, she cheated. Then, to make matters worse, her daughter had the audacity to tell me to grow up and let her mother be happy. So I left them both behind. Now, they're filled with regret, but I've already moved on. Hi Reddit, I'll call myself Plus here. I was 38 when I first met Lisa. She was 33, a divorcee with a 9-year-old daughter named Mia. I wasn't seeking anything serious at the time, having just exited a long-term relationship of my own. But Lisa had this energy about her, vibrant, magnetic, the kind that makes you rethink your plans. We started slow, but within a year, I was completely smitten. Lisa was intelligent, quick-witted, beautiful, and a truly amazing mother. Mia was reserved at first, understandably so, but over time, she began to open up to me. I never tried to be her father, I knew my place, but I showed up for her. I never missed a soccer match, always attended parent-teacher meetings, and nursed her through every flu season. Eventually, when she reached her teens, she started calling me Pops. I'll never forget the first time she said it, I cried right there and then. Lisa and I never made it legal. She didn't want to involve the government again after her previous marriage ended, and I respected that. But in all the ways that counted, we were husband and wife. We paid bills together, made a home, shared bank accounts, and built a life as partners. I truly believed we were solid. That belief started to crumble last fall. At first, it was subtle. She began staying late at work more often, became oddly defensive about her phone, and started picking fights over nothing. I chalked it up to stress. Mia had just moved out for college, and Lisa seemed to be struggling with the sudden quiet in the house. I even considered that maybe she was going through a midlife crisis, so I tried to be as supportive as I could. Then came the message. I wasn't snooping. Her phone lit up while she was in the shower. I casually glanced over, expecting a work notification or something harmless. But what I saw hit me like a punch to the chest, a message from someone listed as, that read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. Wish you were here again." My stomach dropped. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I made copies of what I saw and started digging. Over a few weeks, I pieced everything together. She had been seeing a man from her job, Robert, for 6 months. I found evidence of hotel stays, romantic lunches, and weekend business trips that were anything but professional. When I finally brought it all to light, she didn't deny a thing. She sat across from me with her arms folded, staring at me like I was the one who had wronged her. She said she hadn't felt truly alive in years. That Robert made her feel seen. That she needed to rediscover herself. 15 years. That's what I was to her, just a placeholder until someone more exciting came along. I told her I was leaving. No dramatic scene. No shouting. I just wanted peace. Then Mia called me. I knew she and Lisa were close, and I respected that. But the way she spoke to me that day shattered something inside me that I didn't even know was fragile. She said, "I know you're hurt, but maybe it's time to grow up and let mom be happy. You two weren't even married." I was speechless. I could barely manage to say, "So the 15 years I spent loving and supporting you both mean nothing because there wasn't a marriage license?" She replied, "It's just life, Pops. People drift apart." Hearing her call me Pops in that moment felt like a dagger. So I left. I walked away from the home I helped pay for, from the life I built with them, and I started fresh at 53. I won't lie, those first few months were brutal. The quiet was deafening. The betrayal felt like poison. I questioned whether I had ever really mattered to either of them. But then something changed. 6 months in, I realized I was breathing easier. I no longer had to tiptoe around someone's shifting moods. No more late nights wondering who she was texting or why she was distant. I picked up woodworking again. Started biking on weekends. Reconnected with old friends. Even went on a few dates, nothing serious, but enough to remind me I was still desirable, still alive, still me. Then, last month, Mia messaged me. She wrote, "I'm sorry. I was out of line. I didn't realize how much you meant to both of us until you were gone." I didn't reply. A week later, Lisa reached out too. Said things with Robert had fallen apart after just a few months. Turns out he wasn't exactly long-term material, just a fleeting thrill. She told me she missed me. Claimed she still loved me. Mentioned she was going to therapy. Wondered if maybe, just maybe, we could try again. I didn't respond to her either. Because here's the truth, I gave everything I had to them. My loyalty, my time, my heart. And when things got tough, when I needed their support, they didn't just let me down, they discarded me. I'm not angry. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm just done. And for the first time in 15 years, I feel something I haven't felt in ages, peace. It's been nearly a year now since I packed up that truck and drove away from a life I thought was forever. Time has a funny way of stretching and compressing when you're healing. Some days it all feels like it just happened. Other days, like it was someone else's life entirely. I never told anyone about the messages from Mia and Lisa. Not my coworkers, not my friends. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I didn't need validation. I made my decision, and I stood by it. But the world's smaller than you think. Word gets around. Turns out Lisa didn't just burn our bridge, she set fire to her own life. Robert, the man she cheated with, had a pregnant girlfriend Lisa knew nothing about. That woman eventually showed up at Lisa's workplace with receipts, literal receipts, from hotels, and gave a pretty compelling speech about homewreckers and crises masked as self-discovery. Lisa was formally reprimanded for violating company policy. She was shuffled to a different department. Same salary, but less respect, fewer connections, and an office cubicle shoved into a corner. Mia came by a few weeks ago. I wasn't sure if I'd let her in. I stood behind the door, staring through the peephole longer than I probably should have. When I finally opened it, I barely recognized her. Not because she looked older in the typical sense, it was in her eyes. Life has a way of aging people from the inside when they've had to face truths they spent years avoiding. She handed me a cup of coffee and said softly, "2 sugars, black. Still your favorite." We sat together on the porch. There were no apologies. No justifications. No tears. She just spoke. She shared how she had put her mother on a pedestal her whole life. That it wasn't until I left that she began to see the cracks. That all the things she once took for granted, my presence, my consistency, suddenly stood out in their absence. She realized I'd been the only one who never let her down. The only steady figure in her life. I was angry, she admitted. But not with you. I was mad that someone I trusted could be so heartless. Blaming you was easier than admitting Mom destroyed something real. As she spoke, I couldn't help but see flashes of the little girl she used to be, the one who'd fall asleep curled up on my chest during movie nights. The one I taught to ride a bike, who sobbed into my shirt when her first boyfriend broke her heart. I looked at her and said, "You know, you called me Pops when you told me to grow up." She looked down. "I shouldn't have said that." I nodded. "True. But you were young. You didn't know better." She lifted her eyes. "Do you think, maybe someday we could have coffee again?" I gave her a gentle smile. "Maybe. But not today." And I meant it. I didn't slam the door shut, but I didn't swing it open either. Not yet. Because here's something people don't tell you, forgiveness isn't the same as reconnection. Sometimes you let go of the hurt for your own peace, not to welcome someone back into your life. They don't always deserve a second seat at your table. Lisa still reaches out now and then. I never reply. I've read enough to know she regrets it all. That she thought I'd always be there, waiting quietly for her to come back when her fling with Robert turned to dust. But I'm not a backup plan. I'm not someone you return to when your poor choices fall apart. And maybe the most powerful thing I could do, the thing she never saw coming, is absolutely nothing. No drama. No yelling. No final words. Just silence. A few weeks back, I wandered into a small, cozy bookstore downtown. I was flipping through a woodworking magazine when I bumped into someone. She looked to be in her 40s, wore jeans covered in paint, and had a warm, easy smile that made my shoulders loosen for the first time in a while. We chatted for 10 minutes about books. Then another 10 about dogs. Before she left, she said, "If you ever feel like stopping by my studio, it's just around the corner." I haven't taken her up on it yet. But I might. Because what I've learned is that life doesn't end at 50. It doesn't end after heartbreak. It doesn't even end after betrayal so deep it feels like the ground split open beneath you. Sometimes, it starts again, when you stop chasing the people who never truly saw you, and start seeing yourself. About a month later, I found myself walking past the art studio she'd mentioned. Her name was Erin, I remembered because she'd joked, like Erin Brockovich, but less courtroom drama, more finger paint. I stood outside, peeking through the window. Her work was bold, full of motion and feeling. Not just painted, thrown with intensity. It was vibrant chaos, bursting with emotion. I stepped inside. She looked up from her canvas, her hair tied back, still in those paint-streaked jeans. "Took you long enough," she grinned. That day, we talked for hours. Not about past relationships. Not about hurt. Just life. Music. How the smell of sawdust reminds you of being a kid. What it feels like to lose yourself in something creative. There was no pressure. No future planning. Just being present. And it was good. Since then, we've shared a few coffees. She's met a couple of my friends. I haven't called her my girlfriend, and she hasn't asked me to define it. We're just letting it unfold, slowly. Last week, Lisa messaged again. A long, wandering email about personal growth, therapy, journaling, meditation, all the ways she's trying to change. She said she wanted to meet, for closure. I thought about it. Then I hit delete. Because here's what I've come to understand. Some people don't want closure for your sake, they want it to relieve their own guilt. A way to pry the door open again, even just a crack. But I don't owe her that. Not anymore. Not after everything. My peace doesn't depend on her owning up to what she did. Mia's been quieter. Occasionally, she sends me links to articles she thinks I'd enjoy. Funny dog videos. Photos of her college dorm, decorated with old books I gave her years ago. She hasn't called me Pops again. And maybe she never will. But that's okay too. I'm not waiting for that. I'm not hoping to rewind anything. The truth is, some wounds heal into scars, not as reminders of pain, but as lessons. They teach you what not to tolerate. Who not to give your heart to. What red flags to never ignore again. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not holding my breath for karma to do its job. I'm not bitter. If I ran into Lisa on the street tomorrow, I'd probably just give a polite nod and keep walking. Because real freedom doesn't always come from slamming doors or dramatic exits. Sometimes, it looks like a man riding his bike on a quiet Sunday morning, Springsteen playing in his ears, no destination but forward. Nowhere to be but exactly where he wants to be. And that's better than revenge. That's better than closure. That's peace.